and start recording our meeting. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our April Safety Council meeting. It's nice to have you with us today. Just a few council updates. Just a friendly reminder, our Safety Council scholarship application deadline is April 30th. I've received one applicant so far. So if you know of a senior in high school that lives in the 44830 zip code and is going to pursue a career or a degree in any safety related field, that includes medical as well, have them apply for this scholarship. All the information is on the chamber website under Safety Council, but if you would like me to send you that, I'd be more than happy to. If you have questions, reach out to me, but we would love to give away more than one scholarship. So for that, we need applications. Also, May 3rd is the Safety Council Leaders Conference with the Ohio BWC. And I'm mentioning it to this group because at that meeting, we are supposed to be getting updates on how councils can move forward. So I do believe they're going to look a little bit different moving forward, but my hope is that we can go back to meeting in person. So more to come on that. So at our next Safety Council meeting, and even possibly by the next Safety Council newsletter, I should have some tangible information for you as to how the council is going to move forward. So fingers crossed that we might be able to get off Zoom. I don't know about you all, but this is convenient. It's not always the best way to meet. All right, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you for some BWC updates.
Good morning, Richardson. I only have a few things. They have an upcoming safety stand down that is in May, the 3rd through the 7th. It's going to be prevention falls in construction. Later this month, they'll have a National Fire and Emergency Services. It's a virtual symposium, and that's April 7th through 29th. And then the only other thing that I have is that the BWC currently, as for their release of their printed safety catalog for upcoming courses and classes, will not be printed, but you can get it online virtually. And so I provided that email link to all those things to Sarah, and that's all that I have.
All right, thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. I did drop some information in the chat box there, but what I will do is I'll make sure that information is all included in our next Safety Council newsletter, so you can click right through and have that information. So I will link the virtual classes as far as the virtual symposium for everyone as well. All right, well, without further ado, it is my pleasure today to introduce Stephanie Hunter. She is the COO and co-founder of Ving, and she is here to kind of help us facilitate today's meeting about women in safety and construction. So today's meeting is going to be set up much like our meeting last month, where we will play a video. I encourage you to watch. It's a great conversation by a number of different women within the safety and construction field. And then at its conclusion, Stephanie will still be here and she will be available to answer any questions anyone might have. So bear with me a second as I work to share my screen and get the video to play. All right, hopefully everybody sees 3 lovely women on their screen, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, I'm told we don't have any audio. Is that correct?
I can't hear him.
Nobody, can anyone else hear them? Okay. All right, we have a big no. Well, let's see here. Bear with me a second, everybody. I am open to any suggestions if anyone has any, is when you screen share why I don't have audio, because we have done this before and we have gotten it to work. Pick the drop down for a different setting. Okay. All right. Stephanie, would you be willing to unmute and talk me through this? I know you're privately chatting me and I appreciate it, but you can just unmute and we can work through this together.
That's fine. Can you hear me?
Okay.
So probably if you go to the, before you share, there will be settings on there and it will say where you want the sound to come through. Let me just see if.
Share computer sound. There
Yeah.
we go.
You see?
All right. I knew it had to be one simple button. All right. Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Let's try this again. Here we go.
We are so excited to do our first video conference on women in construction and women in safety. And we have two amazing guests with us today. First, we have Sherry Holmes from Make It Right. Sherry is a home renovator, a TV personality, a keynote speaker, and an advocate for women in trades. Abby Ferri is a practical, innovative, creative, and influential safety professional who is out in the field all the time. She's also an author and a podcast host, and with her being a safety consultant as well. So welcome to you both. My name is Stephanie Hunter. I'm the co-founder and COO of Ving. So welcome. And what I thought would be really good for everyone to hear first is sort of the origins of how you each got involved in construction, and then in Abby's case, safety. So if we could go ahead and maybe if Sherry could start, I think people just always like to know how you ended up doing with what you're doing.
Sure. I think it's kind of a different story than most people expect because I didn't have any interest in construction, to be honest. My parents split when I was pretty young, and we would go and see my dad every other week for a couple of days. And he was usually on a job site. He was always working at his construction company. So a lot of the time we would go to a job site to hang out with our dad, or we would be at his house and building some kind of a project or working on things around the house. So when we were younger, we built, like little toolboxes or bird houses, cutesy little things like that. And then we go to his job sites and probably cause more of a ruckus than help. We would pretend we were helping, but we were mostly just making a mess and chasing each other around a site, which is not safe. I'm sorry, Abby. It is not a safety thing. It was quite a long time ago, so it wasn't as frowned upon. That's a terrible thing to just admitted, but yeah, we used to play around on a construction site. And then sometime in high school, I was always kind of the kid who never really knew what I was going to do. I always worked odd jobs, several at a time to make extra money, but I had no real direction. And my dad tried to talk me into joining the construction site, and I kept saying no. First of all, because I thought it was just kind of a fun bonding thing we did on the weekends, and secondly, because I had absolutely no interest in being on television. Long story short, because I talk a lot, so feel free to cut me off, but I ended up joining his company just to help with some editing while I was thinking about different school options and somehow when he went down to New Orleans to build the first house after Hurricane Katrina, they convinced me to go because I was a backpacker. I love to travel, and you can't really say no to a new place you haven't been or to a family that desperately needs your help. And that was the first job I'd ever found myself like really wearing a tool pouch and doing the work. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to read a measuring tape, and I had to have my brother teach me like around a corner because I didn't want everyone to know that I had no idea what I was doing. And I just had the attitude of doing the best I could, regardless of what my knowledge level was. And here I am.
That is, I think people would be surprised at that, how you came about in like a circle to get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Abby, how about you? Was your start also early on as well?
A little bit, yeah. I resonate with the lack of direction. I feel like my construction story comes a little bit later in college. So I had started out, rewind back to high school. I would work in an office at a construction company that was in my hometown. And there were these two people that were like never in the office. Yet as the office assistant, I was delivering a paycheck to their desk, and then the paycheck would be gone the next day. And I was like, what kind of sorcery is this job that they do? And I learned that they were the safety guys. And so I just kind of filed that in my back pocket. And when I was ready to graduate from college, it was a year early. I finished my undergrad in 3 years. And the two guys I had talked to that were in safety, they both went through a master's degree program at the college I was at. So I thought, well, what the heck? It's a 1-year master's program in environmental health and safety. Seems cool. So I got in and I did it and I loved it. And I was the only person in my class that actually had any interest in construction. So whenever a company would come by to do recruiting or mock interviews that had to do with construction, everyone was just like, go talk to Abby. And it was actually great because then I had like no competition, even though, I did well for these job interviews. And I actually had a job before I graduated from college, and coming from northern Minnesota and then going to Southern California for my first job, it was pretty sweet. So yeah, I started in construction safety right off the bat, right out of college. And it's just been the best career path ever. I love being on a construction site. I think in college, one of my prerequisites or desires for a job was that I could wear jeans every day. So I get to do that. So it kind of comes from that lack of direction a little bit, and that construction is it's a fun environment. So I have always had some element of construction in my career in the past 17 years that it's been since those times in college.
So I think what's really interesting is that you both started about it younger and you had that field experience. I know both of you spend time with younger women and mentoring and teaching. Do you think that's the same type of exposure they get? Like they have that aha moment similarly, or are there different opportunities for them? So how are you seeing women come into the construction/safety area?
Sorry, I don't want to cut anyone off, so I was hesitating speaking there. I think it's a lot different now than it used to be. When I was in school, I don't really recall being presented the opportunity a lot, or did I have a lot of exposure to the career opportunities in the trades. It was kind of more home ec focused, for me anyway. And I guess that's showing my age a little bit, but I think nowadays it's so much better, whether it's what do you call like a counselor in school, or a career counselor. Yep. Sorry, that was a pretty simple term. You can speak to them about different opportunities. There's so many options and so many careers under the umbrella of skilled trades that I wasn't aware of, and I didn't know it was a viable career option for me. But now people come in to speak in schools and they present these opportunities to young women as well as the boys in class. So I think it is a lot different. A lot more women are joining just because I don't think they had the knowledge and were aware that it was something that they could, run with and be great at.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, there's more girl power kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I helped out a local Girl Scout program. It's called Rosie's Girls. And so they have the Girl Scouts, like actual scout age. So like tweens and teen age, where they can actually use power tools. And they did do the birdhouse thing, and they've made some other, projects. I forget, there was some mailbox or something that they did too. And I got to come in and do the safety training for it. So not only were the girls being exposed to construction and building and trades, and also the staff at the college that helped with this, it was majority female that was helping with the program. So they got the construction knowledge, but then they also heard about safety as a career, because my selfish goal when I go out and talk to younger groups is not only to let them know that safety is a career path, but that it's awesome. And then also bring in the construction part of it too. So for me personally, I had no idea that safety was really a job. I think it was late high school, maybe early college, that my dad actually introduced me to an EH&S professional at the paper mill he was working at. So that was kind of an early introduction into safety. But again, I didn't really think of it as a career that was for me until I saw it a little bit later on.
That's amazing. The Rosie's Girls. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Like I just, and to have girls be able to do it without the intimidation of having boys or men around them as well. So they can really focus on what they're doing instead of being scared or intimidated or nervous.
Right. Yeah, they
So
did
cool.
some cool stuff. They with safety, we have a lot of fun props, right? So we get
Yeah.
to bring the PPE, and the girls like to try on the different PPE. And at this particular college here locally, Dunwoody College, one of the instructors is a woman in like an electrical program. So she's an electrician by trade. And so we got her dressed up in like the arc flash suits, and the girls think that's really cool.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
So it was very much of the hands-on experience, goes further beyond sort of the general mentoring. It's really putting people in that environment early on to get that excitement. Is that, that sounds like it's real. I think, Sherry, I saw you speaking once to maybe other students, maybe from Conestoga, same kind of thing where.
Yeah. I work with Conestoga. I also work with Skills Canada, which I didn't mention. And Skills Canada is so wonderful because what they do is create, it turns into a competition, but they introduce skilled trades to, I think public school ages. I'm terrible with children's ages, I'm sorry. But before they get into high school, so that they're exposed to all these different ideas, and it's called Try a Trade. So what they do is come to this area. We were traveling around Canada doing this, COVID. So unfortunately it was more of a virtual thing this year. But so this Try a Trade, you go to this area that we have, and you go to each different station, you get to try a different trade. So whether that be carpentry, makeup, clay work, masonry, there's so many different options, and they get to experience these things. And I've also done the same thing with safety equipment, because I wasn't really aware of the different career opportunities within the safety realm. So I did get to try on all those suits and stuff on those kind of occasions, which is really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of women getting into the safety field now. And, you could go like along gender stereotypes, which early in my career, they'd first ask me, what's it like to be a woman in construction? And I thought, well, it's pretty awesome. I never really thought of it as a thing that would be not great. So I think that's key too, is just to show people just by you living your career, and you're like that living almost cartoon character. I see your Batman water bottle, and it's like it's like a superpower. Almost like we're kind of cartoon characters to some of the kids, that they don't really understand what trades or careers are available to them. And I think what happens is I love the Try a Trade and like the Rosie's Girls thing for that exact purpose, is that you see the light bulb go off for the girls a lot, where they're like, oh, this is actually cool. I can do this, and someday I can get paid to do this. And that's when the true light bulbs go off, because then you can say, well, let me tell you, the average salary for an electrician here in my county, Hennepin County, Minnesota, I think is like $90,000 US.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So you start dropping those stats to the kids, and they're like, oh, I could have a great paying job without going to college, plus get my training paid for. I mean, it's silly for people to not consider that as part of their career path.
So really, it sounds like the numbers are going up. There's more interest because I also know that there's a bit of a shortage right now in the trades, in construction, in safety. So where in construction, I think maybe it's around 9% or like in that area, and the trades are even lower, maybe around 3%. In safety, you're not quite at 20%. So those numbers really have to come up pretty quickly to be able to have a stronger workforce available to do the work.
Absolutely. I don't think the world really can run without trades, whether it be road work or, your skilled trade is hairdressing. So, men go to the hair salon how often? We won't have that. We won't have the opportunity to wait. Or in construction, obviously, the more people who want to renovate, the longer you're going to have to wait for someone who is skilled and knows what they're doing, or for new builds and everything like that. It's going to spiral, and it's insane that people don't realize what a lucrative, amazing career it can be. And because we're in such need for people in the skilled trades, you don't necessarily have to go to college. Not that I'm saying schooling is bad, schooling is amazing, but you can get into those trades. We need to hire you. So you're gonna have a job, you're gonna get paid very well, and you're gonna be so proud of yourself at the end of the day.
And you can always go back. School's still there,
Yeah.
You could go back and imagine, someone that has pipe fitter experience in the field, and now they go back to college and they're going to be a project manager and get that engineering degree. I mean, that's a huge, awesome combination when they come back into the workforce. But I wanted to switch a little bit because it's all like roses, whatever, that, hey, skilled trades and it's great and let's go. But the dark side to me is that often I see construction companies really saying we want women, we want diversity, we want, young people to enter the trades, but they're not thinking as much down the road about how they're going to keep those people. And something that I've talked to a lot of women about, especially women that have kids or families or other relatives that they have to take care of, is that the nature of a construction trade career, it can be so varied that you might have this one job site right now that's close to home, but then the next one is 3 hours away. And the company's yeah, just go, leave for a week and you come home on the weekend or just relocate. And not everyone can do that. So they do lose some of those great people that they attract to the profession. And I think what then happens is that construction has to figure out how they're going to retain us and the other women in the trades. It's a problem that we see right now.
Are there any things that you see that are successful? I know something that's near and dear to your heart is mixing technology and other pieces and merging that together. So there's the field work and then there's technology. I know that we spend a lot of time within our company looking at technology and figuring out what type of tools we can provide to people out in the field to make it easier. So when you talk about retention or learning or making the job easier, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing things where people are thinking outside of the box with a subject matter expert. So maybe it's a tradesperson with longevity in the career. And then the people that are out at those remote project sites, they have a person they can call or a person they can do a video chat with to, if they have an issue and the person's working remotely and solo maybe. So if someone can't travel to the next project site, they can still be available as a remote subject matter expert. So that's one way.
Mm-hmm. And Sherry, do you guys, cool. I know that you do a lot with smart homes and technology that you introduce in the residential side. Are there things that you see are coming more and more to the forefront and that, homeowners need to consider about technology?
Honestly, I think smart homes are blowing up. Everyone seems hey, the Alexa and Google Home and the Ring doorbell or Schlag locks. There's always something. I see a lot more roof panels now for which is amazing, and just to help to conserve energy, and it's energy efficient, it saves money. Amazing. I'm still, honestly, I think there's so much to learn about it, and there's so much always coming out. It's great, I think, when you have a family or when you have children. One thing that I love, and I always tell people, is the Schlag locks. So I have a lock system on my front door, and I can give people unique codes to get into my house when I'm home or not home. I can also talk to Google and say, like, open my front door, because it connects that way, which is really great. I have a kid. I always have my hands full. So it's good that everything can be done using words out loud, which is great. I talk too much, obviously. So that's one of the things that I think is so fabulous. And you're not giving keys away to your household. You're giving a passcode that can expire. You also have an app on your phone. So if I'm out of the country, I can check to make sure my door is locked, which I think is really great. So that one's one I definitely push and I think is amazing just because it's safety.
And
I love that.
Yeah, and certainly because people are spending more time at home.
Yes, especially now.
Available, especially now. And I think, Abby, you were talking a little bit about that people retiring and those knowledge base and people moving on. I think that issue about transference of knowledge and how we're successfully able to take people who have been in the field for years and years and years and make sure that the younger generations get that information and how they best learn and have that available to them. Are you finding a lot of good, strong use for things like so on-demand learning, or things that you can pull up on devices that are available to you? I know that's something that we actually really encourage people with microburst learning, like short burst learning, and having those videos or those PDFs or checklists available to people out in the field. Are those things that you find helpful from a safety and transfer knowledge standpoint?
Yeah, like I wish more companies would use technology like that, because safety messages, I mean, okay, so COVID, right? COVID like changed everything, and you can look at it negative. I like to look at it positive because I feel it really forced a lot of people to move the needle like that much quicker on their use of technology, because you have to now. I mean, we're doing video calls like this all the time. I'm a podcaster. I am no stranger to recording my voice for an Alexa skill. So I like this kind of stuff. Other people used to be very freaked out about it. And so they're kind of creeping slowly into it, or they're quickly trying to catch up. So things like recording video, or just getting that knowledge down from the folks that, I was going to say older, I don't mean older, but people that just have more experience, more to teach to the other people at the project site. So I think as companies are worried about losing that institutional knowledge, that they need to do something about it. So get those workers with more experience and have them record things, or have them look at the checklists and programs and things that are going into a learning management system for the younger or the new workers. I just think technology is our solution for so many of the things that are going on right now. And I just wish people had started a little bit longer ago, but hey, a pandemic, fine, that can be a good catalyst. So hopefully people continue to take this and run with it.
Absolutely.
You're definitely right. Funny story. Sorry, I don't mean to change the subject at all. I used to work with a home inspector, and he refused to use technology. He didn't know how to text. He didn't have an email, and he didn't have a voicemail. So you could call, and if he didn't answer, that was it. So you would try to set up times, and you couldn't do anything online. You'd have to always just call and call and call and hope he'd answer his phone. It's like, I hate recording my voice. I don't like taking videos of myself, but this is the world we live in. And it wasn't that he was, too caught up in his ways. He just refused, just didn't want to do technology. And it was so funny. It was so difficult. Wonderful.
Yeah, I worked with people like that too. It was almost like a badge of honor, like, hey, I don't know how to email.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's really bad, because we're all emailing now. And I saw this happen in my life where I used to work with people like that. And then again, working with the Dunwoody Technology or Dunwoody College folks, I was an adjunct in their construction management program. And on day one, I asked people, like, what is your dream job? What's the job title that you're going for in this education? And I was expecting to hear project manager, project executive, vice president of operations. And the answer most people said was superintendent. And I had to check myself. I'm like, wow, I'm old, because in the past, superintendents they didn't go to college. And now it's a routine thing that a person is getting a college education to become a job site superintendent. So it just shows like how fast technology can push things forward, but also how fast technology becomes part of the job. So a superintendent from the past that I have worked with in the past, they had to retire because they couldn't keep up with how things were going with using technology. And now these kids, are coming out of these college programs, and it's raised the level of professionalism on the project site, which is super exciting.
And
Sure.
I mean, I think that's just very, very, very powerful to have on the sites and everything else. And actually, when we talk about things that have really very much been ingrained in both of you, things become habits. And I know, Abby, you wrote just very recently during the pandemic, the safety habit. And I would love to hear, I mean, we really want people to read the book. It's a great book, very practical. It would be great if you could maybe share 2 key habits, and then I would love it if Sherry could comment then on the habits and how those what her thoughts are too. So that would be great.
Okay, so before I forget, since you gave me like a parameter of 2 things, I have to start with that. So I'm gonna say instinct and sharing. So I think that people need to get in the habit of at least, if an instinct appears that, something doesn't feel safe or it doesn't seem quite right, that they need to do something with that, whether it's ask someone a question, stop and take some extra time, or remove themselves from a situation. I think instinct is something that we should get in the habit of listening to. And I guess that could be coupled with like a woman's intuition kind of thing, that we might be better at this. But then on the flip side, a lot of us women, we kind of push that aside too. Sometimes you have that voice coming up in the back of your head. You need to just like bring it forward and understand like, why is that voice telling me something? There's something there. Then the other habit would be to get into sharing. So this would be sharing life experience, or I like safety through storytelling. And a lot of times safety people, even too, we sometimes have an example where we are the example, the bad example. And so it's important to make it a habit of sharing and being more transparent, because people can learn from your perspective and from your experience.
I think that's awesome because people learn from mistakes regardless. I've made plenty of them, don't get me wrong. I think instinct is great because sometimes you don't know how to get yourself out of a situation, or if you feel uncomfortable what to really do, you can be intimidated to tell someone. But if you don't feel like something's right, or you feel uncomfortable, chances are it probably isn't right, and you should be uncomfortable. And not always to feel guilty or terrible telling someone you don't want to do it or you don't feel safe doing it. Because yeah, I feel like at some point along the road we were taught that just do what you're told, don't worry about it. And then the sharing for the storytelling, totally with you on that. I think I always share what I've done wrong. I'm surprised I have all of my fingers. I've definitely made mistakes because you're learning, or you're just not paying attention. And that's the biggest one. Always, 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 always pay attention. Doesn't matter how tired you are.
And if you're too tired to pay attention,
leave. Yeah.
Stop.
You have the instinct to get off the job
Yes.
site.
Yes. Well, there's also too like that supervisory element. So like the instinct and the sharing thing can be for the craft worker, but also for the supervisor, that if you see that someone's having a tough time, remove them from the hazardous situation. Like if you see like a carpenter or an iron worker that has to go and work at height, and during like the morning talk or morning stretch and flex, you see like, I don't think that person's really with it today. Do something about that, because if something were to happen, something negative, you would never live with yourself. So it's important to like speak that stuff out. And I think that's the perspective that women bring to the project sites and to safety especially, is that care element, but also like just saying it, like I see this, I'm going to say it, and we're going to do something about it. We're going to hash it out, instead of like a project manager that I used to work with, he called it the default to action, that a construction worker, typically male, just wants to get it done. And they're not going to stop and think safety. So I try to frame it as like thinking safety is an action. It is moving something forward. It's not stopping you and making you take longer to do your job.
That's a great way of looking at it, especially on a job site, because you have to work on a timeline. And a lot of the time you don't really consider everything and you're just working and pushing forward, but it is moving forward thinking of safety. It's also moving forward in your life if you think of your safety.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I really like that you both shared the perspectives that you're bringing on site, which, you know, we are talking about women in construction, women in safety, and I think that perspective feels very different to me than, you know, and I think from that standpoint, it's very exciting because it's bringing just another way to look at something. And that I think is something that's very powerful and beneficial for everyone, because it seems as if it will bring the entire workforce up another notch, which is a good thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's why, you know, some people are kind of negative about all the diversity, equity, and inclusion talk right now. And I just always say, no, that's what we need. We need to have other perspectives, because if we always have the same monotone perspective at the table, we're not going to have these new solutions or new ways of doing things, or sometimes better ways of doing things, if you're just always trying to keep those other voices from the table. So I just think the more voices, the better.
1000%. When I don't know, I'm just going to throw a story in here. When I first started in construction, it was funny because we were doing a PPE meeting and we were being fitted for our all safety, like harnesses and that kind of stuff. And they didn't have a harness that fit my body. So all the harnesses previously were made for men, not to mention that we have a chest area as well that needs to be kind of considered. So they didn't have something small enough. I could literally get several limbs through a loop at its tightest setting. And it was very uncomfortable and not thought of. Women have breasts, so it needs to be considered. They had to go in special order and make me a harness to wear on site. Because they didn't have those other voices.
The one size fits all didn't fit.
Weird, right?
Yeah, that's still a problem, actually. And it's one of the things that I like to work on with my group that I'm in, the Women in Safety Excellence, with the American Society of Safety Professionals. And harnesses are one of the points of conversation, because also, you know, we talk about the chest fitting too. It's not just the size, but also the cut of these harnesses. Mm-hmm. And so there's like these cross front harnesses that a lot of manufacturers have come up with and said, here you go, ladies, the cross front harness, that's what you need. And when you really try on some of those, some of them don't fit for some of the women, and some women just want the same one that, you know, the men wear. It's just that we need a different size or capability to change the size in different ways. And there's a harness I found from a manufacturer that actually is, everybody finds it to be awesome because it takes the weight off of the waist and the shoulders. It like distributes it differently. So it feels like you're barely even wearing a harness. So when you bring those different perspectives about size, it actually can benefit everybody. So it starts off as a conversation about like, we need a small harness to fit Sherry, but then it becomes, well, Mike needs a really big one. So, you know, it just becomes a conversation about having options and actually taking into account fit considerations.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my brother is a lot bigger than me. So we had that very large range. And you know what? Not all women want to stand on site. I'm one of them. I like to have what the men have. I don't want, and not saying there's anything wrong with this, I don't want to have just pink boots or just pink harnesses and a hard hat. I want to wear what the men are wearing because I already know that I'm a woman on set. They can tell I'm a woman on a site. I don't need to necessarily always look like one.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because that was like one of the main things when some of us women in safety started having that conversation. We were like, I am sick of a manufacturer saying, oh, well, there's options for women. There's pink and purple and teal and sometimes leopard print. It's like, that's not an option. That's not something that's based in science.
No, oh my God, it drove me crazy. I only recently started even wearing pink outside of work because I refused to look like that. And you know, when I first started in construction, I would get, you know, called Barbie or this and that. And you just construction Barbie. I was like, that isn't funny. I think everyone's welcome to their own choices. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not something, I don't think it should be our only option, because some women don't want that. You know, we're on a job site to work, not to stand out.
Yeah, like sometimes you just want to be there just like everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I love that both of you are doing is kind of really what you were talking about speaking up and sharing your stories, because clearly both of you have gotten to a very high level of what you're doing. And I think the more and more people that can hear these messages and internalize them and not be afraid, who go into the fields, who go into trades and construction and safety, and have mentors and people like the both of you, then I think we're heading in the right direction. I think that said, are there specific things, takeaways that companies can do that can really start addressing how women can move up as well? So getting into the fields is the first step. The other part, you know, just learning and having an interest. And the next part is, how do they grow? How do we retain the women? How do they actually move into leadership positions like the both of you? Are there good takeaways that you could say to women who are interested in going the path, but saying, don't worry, you can get into it, but you can also keep on going? What are those things that you would want to say?
That's a tougher question. I think I've been lucky enough with a lot of the places I've worked, that I think I would say to women, you know, just push as hard as you can and work as hard as you can, and it will happen. Because I do think that men and, you know, and people in leadership roles respect that. So the more you prove that you want to be there, I think a lot more doors open for you.
I tend to agree with that to a point, so I don't want to disagree, but I'll add something to that. A couple weekends ago, there was the Tradeswomen Build Nations event, and it was done virtually. And they had these breakout groups that were like, I think they were called lean-in circles, that a group had experimented with it. And I watched the group, and they introduced themselves, and I think the majority of the women in the group, they were like the top of their apprentice class, like all these accolades. And I thought, wow. And they even had issues on project sites.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even if you're like the star performer, and a lot of women, like they think they have to be that star performer in order to even be on like an even keel on a project site. And that's not right, you know, because amongst the men, there's some crappy ones, you know, on the project site, and they still get the same paycheck or still get, you know, the opportunities for advancement. So I think there is strength in having groups that are geared towards women, because we do face unique challenges on the project site. Also, I think it's important for men to really demonstrate how they're allies. There's a lot of men that they're like, yeah, women in the trades, we love it. It's like, okay, show us. You know, when something comes up, like step in there and say something. Or if you're in a position to hire somebody or evaluate people for advancement, like make sure you're doing it fairly and that you're taking all these things into consideration. Make sure that you are removing barriers, you know, for someone to be retained by a company if they, you know, have a family or have other barriers and they can't travel to that other job site. Maybe there's an opportunity close to home, and it just takes a little creativity to find that. So I really, I've been excited and energized by being in different groups that are just women focused. But I always now am making sure I don't miss the opportunity to call out the guys that have always said, like, you go, like, keep going. It's like, well, come with me or go first and make the introduction, and then we'll come in there. So that's my takeaway.
You know what, you're right. That's absolutely right. I think women groups are very important because it's the support that you need without the intimidation or the anxiety that can sometimes come with both sexes talking about the same thing. But I also think that men need to step up. And you're right, some of the men on job sites aren't on par with women. Some aren't doing what they should be and making the paycheck. It is all about support at the end of the day. And I totally agree with you.
Awesome.
I think everyone will be very, very excited about what both of you have shared. Very respectful of your time. Appreciate the insight you've had. I guess my last question would be, are there topics that I should have asked you that we didn't cover that you would like to share?
You know what, a big one for me, and I'm only going to say it because it was something that I was terrified of. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I thought I would lose my job, I would be fired, I couldn't do it. And I think that's a very, very big issue for women in the trades or in safety. It's sometimes you're traveling, it's hard work, you don't always have the attention span, you don't want your home life to suffer. And I did a speaking engagement in, I think I was in, oh my goodness, where was I? I might have been in Texas. And I was 7 months pregnant. And I asked all the women in the room, it was women in roofing, and I said, how many of you have children? And almost every single one of them raised their hands. And they're all working in roofing, whether it be in the office, on a construction site, in safety for roofing, anything. They all had children. I was like, okay, so we can do it. We just don't talk about it, what we need to do. And we are capable of it. It just seems like it'll be harder work. So I think that's something that can be addressed a little bit more for women thinking, oh, sorry, this is my cat. For women thinking about getting into the industry is you can be a mom and still do it. Can you get off me?
And a pet owner.
And a pet owner. Sorry about that.
That's awesome. Actually, one of my friends in safety, she just posted on LinkedIn today, and I saw it right before this. Her name is Camille Oakes, and she posted a selfie from a couple weeks ago where you can see she's pregnant, and she has her safety vest on. She has like a hairnet and her hard hat, and she's like, "See, we can do this." I honestly think she's 7 months pregnant as well at the time of the photo. And it made me think about a time I was about that pregnant too, where you're kind of big, where people are like, what do we do about this? Do we even acknowledge that she's pregnant? Can we say anything? You know, because sometimes the guys are scared to say something. So I would break the ice. Yeah, I would usually break the ice and be like, yes, I'm pregnant, and it's okay to acknowledge that now. But I remember I was working for an association at that time and was supposed to be doing job site visits for a like a safety excellence program, and people were terrified to invite me out to the job site to do a site walk. And I had a couple of male allies that they're like, well, come on out, it's fine, if you want we can drive around on the cart. And I was starting to climb a ladder, and that's when they told me, maybe let's stay on the ground level. And that was confirmed by my doctor. So,
yeah,
it just sometimes takes an ally to be like, yeah, like this is fine. And then the other people on the project site are like, oh, it's fine. Okay. And when you're pregnant, it's like, I can be here until I'm delivering the baby practically. So
as long as you're taking the safety measurements that you have to, and taking care of yourself and the child. But yeah, we can totally do it.
Yeah.
We can do everything. Women are superheroes. You're right.
Heck yeah.
Can't argue with that. I'm so glad that you actually brought that up, because a long, long time ago, so when I was pregnant with my first one, which would be in the early 90s, I actually didn't tell anybody until I was 6 months pregnant. And so people thought I was just getting heavy. And so I think happily things have progressed a lot. But Sherry, to your point, people don't talk about it. So I'm glad that you raised it. It's like everybody would be doing that whole piece about work-life balance when there are moms who are, moms, dads, but a lot of moms who are working and having to do homeschooling for their children and doing other pieces. So they're juggling a lot of other parts. I'm very glad and grateful that you brought that up. It is something that people will say, oh yeah, we should be talking about that, but people aren't. So
no, unfortunately.
They
will be now.
Right. They will
that's
be.
right.
Yeah.
We're starting the conversation.
I think the whole pandemic work from home thing too has kind of helped with that conversation as well, because I welcome seeing my coworkers, their dog, cat, like right on time, kids, because in the past I've been like going crazy with the mute buttons on the Zoom or on the phone, or closing a door, to quickly time so that nobody hears that there's anybody else in the background, when it's like, well, that's not real life, So I'm just happy that, we're seeing more of people's humanity. And I think that is good, for safety, for really anything. It's good for all of us to see that everyone's kind of dealing with things. We're all getting through some things. We're humans. We're not just working robots.
Absolutely. That's perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time and your honesty, sharing your stories and weighing in on some important topics that I think a lot of people want to hear about. And hopefully this is a start of a series of other conversations that we can have with the both of you, and expand it some to bring in other women to join us, and certainly some men as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Stephanie about the video we watched, or anything pertaining to safety, women in safety, or Ving?
I think earlier when Sarah and I were talking before this started, I did want everyone to know that we actually have another 2 podcasts that are coming up. One deals with diversity and inclusion, and the other one is going to deal with violence in the workplace. So we're excited about those and have other panels set up. So we're looking forward to sharing that information with your chamber, your safety council.
All right. Well, thank you. If you think of a question later or you would like more information, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to provide Stephanie's contact information for you. And with that said, everyone, have a wonderful day. While no one wanted snow in Ohio this late in April, it is quite beautiful out there. The sun is shining. So I hope you can all find a bright spot in the snow that has come, and hopefully it's the last. So everyone, have a wonderful and safe day and rest of your week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Stephanie.
Thank you.